Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. As you can probably tell from the title of this video, we are going to be working on the wiring harness and wiring up the truck. So this is something I do not have a lot of experience in. I really want to learn it. It's one of the main things I want to learn from doing this whole LS swap on the truck. I want to try expanding my knowledge base because the mechanical stuff, putting stuff in, cutting, that's really not too hard compared to electrical, at least for me. I am not good at electrical and I would like to gain more knowledge on it. So with that, it's going to be a struggle for me to get the wiring harness in and getting everything working properly and making sure everything's working the way it should be. Everything's getting power, all the signal wires are working. But I'm going to learn it, I'm going to do it, I'm going to get the truck running, and it's going to be great. But before we can do that, there's some things we need to finish up on the truck. And then we're going to go ahead straight into the wiring. So before we start working on the wiring on the truck, we need to get the jack plate off, take that off, get the valley pan cover in there, the knock sensors, the seals, the wiring for it, get all that in there. That way we can take jack plate off and all the tape. We need to get that out. So after that, I need to clean up. I got a lot of loose stuff just lying around, especially on this side. I need to clean these wires up, get everything moved out. But basically what I'm going to try doing is I'm going to use the stock computer mount, which is right here on top of the coolant reservoir. And I want to use the stock fuse box in the S10 as well and utilize that for powering the injectors, the coils, everything like that. I'm trying to incorporate everything into that fuse box. I have been looking at the wiring layouts for the black connector. I believe it's the C2 black connector for the fuse box, underhood fuse box. There are some things I have figured out as far as moving pins, but I haven't figured everything out because this fuse box and the Suburban fuse box are different. They are the same year truck or same model year vehicles, but they don't work like that. They're not the same. So I'm trying to figure everything out and make sure that I get power where I need to, not put power where I don't, anything like that. So that's one of the biggest things. But before I dive more into that, I need to do what I said here, get the valley pan cover on, knock sensors, computer in here, and then I'm going to try starting to lay the wiring harness out kind of how it should be to get an idea of what it's going to look like, and we'll go from there. That's just a starting point, but I'll learn as I go. So let's get to it. Here is one of the new knock sensors. So one old one, one new one. Should work fine, no issues. And then I also grabbed a new GM performance harness. Here's the part number if you're curious, but this should be the new GM harness for it, for the knock sensors. So we'll go ahead and open her up. So you can see it comes with the seals for the top, the new connectors because I broke the last connectors. So yeah, it's pretty nice. And also here's the part number for the knock sensor I used, the new one, original AC Delco. So you guys want these knock sensors, this is the part number. So we got the valley pan cover and gasket on, the knock sensor grommets, knock sensors, and knock sensor harness all on and installed. So everything here is good to go. It was 18 foot-pounds to torque the bolts for the valley pan. So I started from the middle and worked your way out. I believe there's an actual torque sequence for it, but I believe it's pretty similar to that. So start from the middle, get those two, work your way one bolt section out, go to the other side, come around that outside, and then the back outside. And I think that's how it is. Don't take my word for it, but that's what makes sense to me. So yeah, now we can go ahead and start setting up the harness in the bay. This is the computer from the Suburban. It's the exact same size as the one from the S10. everything dimensionally about it is the same. So I'm going to go ahead and plop it onto the stock location of the computer for the S10, and if all goes well, which it should fit right on with no problems. Okay, so I cleaned the mounting bracket up a little. It looks a lot better and all black like that. So it goes on like this. Grab the computer. Should just slide in on this side and then pull these black tabs back. I'm putting pressure on it while I do that. Snapped in, and then flip this over and it's locked in. So not too bad, pretty easy to put on. And then grab these bolts out. Oh, whoops, you can't see. I grab the bolts out of the overflow tank. Slide this back down in here. Make sure I don't have any wiring under it. And go ahead and thread the bolts back in. There we go. That ain't going much of anywhere. Computer's mounted. Not too bad. Pretty easy process overall. Okay guys, now that I got the computer in, I'm going to go ahead and grab the harness, pull the harness around, plug the red and blue C1 and C2 connectors in, and go ahead and start routing it. Hopefully with this I can get a little bit better picture of what I need to do. I'm still not going to have a great picture. Try to figure out some of the cable routing and that kind of stuff, and we'll see where it goes. So we ran into an issue. We were trying to get the transmission harness and this O2 sensor to go down back behind the engine over on top of the trans where everything should go. And we were having a hard time getting the plugs in through the top here. So we tried getting the plugs on this side and then finagling the wiring through the back. Well, we found a problem. There was a stud sticking out the firewall with a nut on it that holds this plastic down. So we couldn't leave the stud there hitting against the head and rubbing on it. So to fix this, I got a Sawzall, finagled the blade back up in here, and I was eventually able to get everything, or to get the stud cut shorter. So now we have room in between our head and the stud, and we can actually run our wiring through. Yeah, I mean, we just had to get that done. I had to go to the store and get a 12-inch blade for it because we didn't have any long enough, but it's good and we have the clearance now. So I'm going to go ahead and continue trying to get some of this wiring ran, get this a little cleaned up. I say that, I don't know if it'll ever be clean, but you need the spaghetti to run the truck. So another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to re-loom the cabling on the coil pack bracket. As you can see, this is all nice, old and crusty, and I'm just going to make it look a little better because this is disgusting. Alright, and here's what it looks like with the new loom on the harness. Turned out pretty good. Does not look bad at all. One thing I could do is I could do a little bit better job tidying up the tape on the fronts here where they plug into the coils, but other than that, not too bad.
Next day.
I haven't really done a good job at explaining what I'm doing, but it's kind of hard to explain while I'm wiring it, so I'll go ahead and show you what I've been working on. So in the last clip, I was over here working on this connector right here. So on the Suburban harness, this is called the C101 connector, I believe, right? Or no? No, on the Suburban harness, this is called the C100 connector. On the S10 harness, it's called the C101 connector, but they plug into each other. As you can see, plug into each other, no issues. What I was doing is I was repinning this, so all of the pins on here are different for the S10. So all the pins in the Suburban are different. Not even all the inputs are in here for what needs to be on the S10 input. So I'm just going around through this, pinning everything. I'm also shortening everything, so this cable or this connector was really far away from the computer on the Suburban. Like, I could stretch it out all the way to the other side of the truck pretty much, but as you can see, it's right next to the connectors. They're right next to the PCM now. So I shortened all the cables. I mean, I gave it a little extra length. Like you can see, I can pull it out pretty far now. Don't need that, but I figured it'd be better to have a little slack as opposed to not enough and it doesn't reach. That way, if I wanted to pull the PCM at least out of this mount, I could do that and still have some slack. But yeah, so that's what I was working on, getting that integrated. There's some stuff that has to be relocated for this from other inputs, like the AC, one of the AC circuits goes to the fuse box panel, or the fuse box connector on the Suburban, but it just goes straight through here on the S10, so I gotta move it from the fuse box connector to the C101 connector. So that's kind of what I was doing there. And now what I'm gonna do, sorry, don't mind the mess here, but now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start unplugging the pins, well, labeling and unplugging pins from the PCM connector, the C1 and C2 connectors, and I'm gonna start getting everything laid out where I want it on here and trimming the wiring shorter to make it look as factory as I can. So at the moment, I'm thinking I'm gonna run all of the harness through here. I might decide to change it and have it run on top like the factory harness does, just to make it look as stock as possible, I guess. That's what I'm going to be doing, is I'm going to depin, lay everything out where it needs to be, kind of how it's going to run. I'm going to bring the intake here, so I'll probably be taking the intake on and off as far as just setting it down on top to get an idea. And I'm going to be trying to figure out all these cable links and then cutting the wires, putting new pins on them. So I ordered all the new pins and boots and everything I need to crimp them together, and then I'll be plugging them back into the PCM and sort of getting the layouts already ran. I'm hoping doing this I will take out a ton of bulk wire that's just unnecessary, and it'll just make everything a lot more clean. I think really the hardest part about this is going to be these grounds, because the grounds, if you can see here, this black ground loop, it's just like one big solder connection, and it has grounds from a bunch of different items come into it. So you can see there's like 4 wires coming out the top and 3 coming out the bottom. So that just makes it a little harder to keep everything clean with how it's tied together, and you can see all the ground wires in there. It's very messy, but I will work on it and make progress towards it and try to get everything to look as clean as possible. So that's kind of the goal right now. I want to get this stuff taken care of, and then I will do some more work on this fuse box connector here, and I'll also do more work on that C101 connector that I mentioned earlier that I was working on to integrate everything in. So yeah, that's kind of the plan here. Take it one wire at a time, and I'm gonna go ahead and get to it. Alright guys, so I went through and I kind of sorted all the wiring out. I put all the stuff that goes on the intake into the rear of the engine, sort of like the throttle body sensor, plugs, oil pressure sensor, knock sensor, plugs, all that kind of stuff. I put it up there on top of this cable route that's going through. And I kind of wanted to mock up the intake and kind of see how I'm going to want this wiring to come from the PCM over here. So I think now looking at it, I am not going to run through this gap. I just don't think that's going to look good, seeing a big wire loom run up under here. So my solution to this is, like I said before, I'm probably going to run it right along with this cable route here, and then we'll run the wiring under the intake. You can see there's a ton of room under here. Obviously right now there's not, because I can't even get a seal on it. I also can't get the intake quite back as far as I need to. It is hitting on the heater. Here, let me move it. I don't know if you can see back in there. You can kind of see back in there the heater core inlet and outlet back here. There's this one right here I'm touching. There's another one right here, and the intake hits into it. So more than likely I'm gonna have to trim that down to get the intake to fully seat. But right now I think that's the best option as far as cable routing, is through the top. I'm gonna go ahead and move it, and then I will start depinning. As you guys just saw, I got 1/2 of the C1 blue connector depinned. I have them all labeled. I've been labeling everything so I can make sure I keep track of it all. And this is just getting us one step closer. So I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of the blue C1 connector, and I'm also going to do the red C2 connector as well. As you guys can see, I just finished wrapping up pulling all the pins. Here's the blue C1 connector, no pins attached to it at all, no wires. Same thing with the red C2, no wires or anything there. Here's all the wire mess that I have to deal with. You can see everything has been labeled, judging by all the blue painter's tape. I labeled every single pin that I pulled from these two connectors, and that's just gonna make my life so much easier. All right, with that said, I'm gonna go ahead and cut to tomorrow. What's up, guys, and good morning. I am back at it today. I'm gonna start right where I left off. So I'm gonna go ahead and get to separating everything and starting to run the wiring and trim it down and repin it. Let's get to it. As you guys can see, I have the truck up on the lift. So I went through and I did a lot of cleaning up on the front of the engine. I really was just trying to get all this grounding wire untangled. Like, you can see this stuff here. This is a mess of grounding wires just because of how they do these connections here. So I got everything untangled from that, and now I am trying to get all the links for the transmission stuff and fuel pump, all that wiring, O2 sensors. So if we come under here, you can see I have a majority of my sensors coming out on the passenger side of the transmission. I do need to change where some of the stuff is. So I realized I put the bank 1 sensor on this, the bank 1 oxygen sensor on this passenger side. It needs to go on the driver's side. This one's the bank 2 sensor, which is supposed to be on the passenger side. I also have running all the way to the ground, the fuel pump wiring. I need to switch sides with that. I want that to run along this path here where the wiring's already going. So you can see how that goes up in there. I'm gonna have to put some heat shielding on the wiring up there, but other than that, it should be good. And then I'll run it along this frame rail all the way back to the fuel tank and where the fuel pump goes. So, I mean, that's kind of what I'm up to, is I'm getting all these links put together. I'll probably start plugging everything in down here. That way I can pull the excess wire, the excess slack up and trim everything to fit, really. All right, to give you guys an update, I have the 2 connectors that are supposed to run back here plugged in. I have most of the slack out, or as much as I want to take out. As you can see up there, there's a little bit for the big connector here. but I don't think that's going to be an issue. I'd rather have a little bit of slack than none whatsoever. I have the bank 2 sensor on the passenger side like it's supposed to be, about where it's going to be on the truck, at least as far as exhaust goes. Come over to the other side. I have ran the neutral safety switch and this other plug over top the transmission, so it still comes in from the passenger side, but now it comes over top the transmission and comes down. Same thing with the O2 sensor, and more than likely that's what I'm also going to do for the fuel pump wiring as well. I just think that's going to make everything a lot easier, and yeah, I mean, I think it's just going to make it easier. I'll probably have it come over top the transmission back here, run down along the cross member, and then we'll cut back. So I'm going to go ahead and lower the truck and show you what I've done on the top to sort of set my bearing straight for everything. So I know this looks like a bird nest now. That's how it's been looking pretty much this whole series, but you can see here I have zip ties along the wiring, one on each side. So this is going down to the driver's side over the transmission. This is going to the passenger side along the side of the transmission. These zip ties here I am using to keep that's where it needs to be level with the top of the engine here. That way I know I don't have too much up to where it's pulled everything tight, or there's too much slack downward if you give it excess more cable. I have it running up to the top right here where it's going to be loomed to go over to the PCM on this side, or if anything needs to go over to the fuse box on this side, it will. With this, now I can go ahead and start running all the PCM connectors over along the side like I just mentioned, and then I can cut the wire to length and repin it and start plugging items back into the PCM connectors. Alright, so what I just did is I moved all the wires that go to the PCM and ran them over here. So this is all the excess wire I have. Obviously this does not need to be this long. There's so much excess here, and I'm going to end up cutting all of that excess out until it's just a straight path to the PCM. With maybe a little bit of slack, but not nearly this much, maybe like an inch or two of slack. That way I can actually move stuff around, and if I want to change the route a little bit, I can. So that's why I'm going to leave a little bit of slack, but this is obviously way too much slack. So you can see I have my zip ties about where they need to be for underneath the truck. So this is what I'm going to be working with, and probably end up zip tying this to the existing loom route that's already here, so I can kind of get a better picture of what I'm doing. And then once I get all that done, I will move over to this side. So this is all the power connectors and grounds. I'm really mainly going to focus on the power wires, which are all the colored wires here. All the black ones are the ground. So that cable route will be up on this side of the channel and coming probably through here, back around into the fuse box. And this is the fuse box connector. As you guys saw, I just finished up doing the transmission harness. I got everything trimmed to length, I got everything repinned, put back into the connector. What I really did was I would pull the wire out straight, and I just made a mark on this tape I have on my truck, and I would cut it there every time, and that got me a consistent length for every pin that goes into the connector. As you can see, everything is starting to clean up pretty nicely. This is actually all the wire that I took out from the harness from just trimming all of those wires. Alright, but with that said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up for the day, and I'll see you tomorrow.